My name is Naomi Stead, and I'm the head of the Department of Architecture at Monash University. And you are Tom Morgan, my colleague. So, can you tell me a bit about yourself, Tom?
So in a practical sense, I'm a tutor in the first year. I'm also one of the sort of coordinators into the first year. And at the moment, I am the program director for the Bachelor of Architectural Design, which is the undergraduate program. I studied at RMIT. I've been at Monash for a fair while, but in lots of different roles. I sort of came here as a research assistant, and I undertook my PhD at Monash as well.
So can you tell me a bit about your role as the course director of the Bachelor of Architectural Design? Like, what does that mean? Students might not be aware of what that actually practically means for them.
Students have a lot of contact with their tutor, and there's unit coordinators for things like technology and for history. My role as the sort of program director is really just to sort of act as a catch-all for things that can't get caught by those roles. Students might encounter me if they've got bigger questions about sort of course progression, or questions about their academic sort of pathway through the course, or just they want to have a chat about sort of things that don't get caught up in those other roles.
So can you tell me what first year architectural design students who will be going into the second semester of architectural design in 2020, in this very strange pandemic moment, what they can expect?
Hopefully what they'll have understood is that the first semester is really about bodies and space. In the second semester, we start to consider context. So we start to consider the things that sit outside of the body that might actually be influencing the kinds of architectural decisions and the ways that people can operate in these kinds of spaces. And those contexts are not just spatial contexts, so not just the site, but also the situation it finds itself in, its history, its sort of cultural sort of logics. So we go from being out in space and we land back on Earth. And yeah, we work through a series of sort of stage projects that culminate in a house that has a mixture of public and private program embedded in that house. I think what will be different in that second semester is that there'll be more chance to discuss ideas, because we've got a bigger cycle of feedback. And that means there'll be more robust ideas and pretty more personal expression in the ideas. I think that there'll be a bigger focus on the way that we're drawing rather than perhaps making models. And I think there'll be a bigger focus in sort of understanding context, empathy, being able to put ourselves into other people's shoes.
So thinking about the massive changes in architectural education that have happened in a very short period of time as a result of the pandemic, I mean, what are your observations of that? This is a very big question, but what do you think are going to be the kind of benefits that come out of this, educationally speaking? I mean,
an important thing is that it's really reminded people of the value in education and the necessity of it as an ongoing part of a set of cultural practices. It's one of the things that needs to continue in these environments. It can't be discontinued. Probably on a really local level, what it's been able to do is it's been able to give people a sense of the value that's embedded in sort of face-to-face. And I think it's changing the way that students are seeing and prioritizing face-to-face communication. So I think it's changing the way that this is working, and it's starting to set up a much more fluid way in which feedback is being incorporated. And it's also starting to privilege the idea that feedback is coming from other actors. So people that are outside of the classroom, other students. I mean, in some cases, we've had really good examples of people bringing in critics and reviewers from around the world, because we can now. But also that we can get feedback that sits outside of the normal class time. So if there's small questions or if there's big questions, they start to become part of a sort of a distributed space of feedback that exists across the week and across the semester.
And thinking about how your students, Monash architecture students now, have coped, what have been your observations about that?
I think for first years it's a challenging time anyway. So I'm doubly impressed because people have been so accommodating. I think there's still that natural thing that happens in that first semester, the first year, where you're working out what the systems are, and we still have the systems and we're being very clear about them. So yeah, I've been really impressed by the way that people have been sort of adapting to it, and their interest in sort of seeing what these systems hold, and their eagerness to engage with all the different online learning systems that we've been applying to them. I think the great thing is that we've got a fairly clear idea of what that toolkit is now, and they are a lot better at us than we are. So they're already running rings around us on these platforms.
So I wanted to ask you a bit about yourself, Tom. Is there I believe you enjoy the literary genre of science fiction. Is that correct?
It is correct. It is the only literary genre I read.
Does that mean that you like science fiction films as well, or are you particularly interested in literature?
I think more literature. I mean, I think film seems less suitable for estrangement than literature. I'm sure someone can explain it better, but I think partly because it's sort of spectacular. It's designed to cloud and muddy, whereas literature, I think, can open up questions.
Great. Hey, I'm going to ask you some kind of quick fire, rapid fire questions. How would your 10-year-old self react if they could see you now?
I think they'd be bemused, but moderately impressed.
What's the worst job you've ever had?
Oh God, I was in a call center for 3 weeks, and I left halfway through a shift and did not go back.
I'm with you on that. When will you know you've made it?
I won't. There's no it to make.
Very good. Very good. Do you have a work best friend?
I've got lots of work best friends.
Very good. Oh, you're good at this, Tom. How do you motivate yourself?
I don't know. It's a sense of responsibility and an obligation, and also just not wanting to be wrong about things.
What's the worst career advice you've ever received?
I think actually, weirdly enough, in some ways it was counter to the advice to look at architecture. I was told in high school to actually just focus on sciences.
Interesting. And you're glad you didn't do that?
I'm very glad I didn't do that.
All right. And maybe this can be the last one. What are you most proud of in your teaching?
It's that people come into a course with really rigid preconceptions about what this thing is, because it is a profession and they've seen buildings. And within the space of 6 to 12 weeks, they can find something in it that they didn't expect to find it in the first place. And it might be that there's a space for stories in their practice, or it's a space for, people who really enjoy films or games, people who are really interested in sort of, sociology and history, people who have a really strong art practice, to realize that they're not coming in to do measured drawings, that's just one tiny component of what architecture can be. So I personally find it very rewarding to be able to sort of open people up to what these possibilities are.
Well, that is fabulous. Thank you so much, Tom. This has been a super interesting conversation. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Awesome. Wonderful.
And brings it to a close.